You know how sim racing, especially multiplayer, is usually considered a very serious affair? You'll often hear advice like pick a car and stick to it, as if it's some sacred rule. But what if I told you it doesn't have to be this mind-numbingly tedious pursuit of the next tenth of a second? That you are actually allowed to switch cars. Shocking, I know. And that's exactly what we're doing this week in LFM. Just imagine bringing a purebred American muscle car to an iconic European racetrack like Barcelona.
It'll freak 'em out.
We arrive at race 1, and as expected, our quali results are, well, not exactly pole position material. P8. But never mind that. We're here to see how the Camaro fares against the nimble European sports cars on this twisty track. This should be an exciting race, especially as it is starting to go dark. It's an evening race. Well, it starts in the evening anyway. It will probably finish at night. The Let's Go Green at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, and we're off. We pass the Mercedes to our left and barrel down the straight. Soon enough, turn 1 approaches and we need to be cautious. New car, new track, new problems. It seems that most drivers share this sentiment. Except for this McLaren, who brakes so late he might as well be time traveling. Bold strategy. Somehow, we've survived the first few corners and even gained 2 positions. Not bad. Time to settle in and see if we can keep up with the quick guys up front. Now, I have to say, I've never raced in these dusk conditions before, and it's stunning. The darkness slowly creeping in gives the race an extra layer of intensity. Very cinematic. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. 1 lap down, and we are in a decent spot. The cars in front aren't running away, and we've built a bit of a gap to those behind. We might actually be onto something here. As we approach turn 7, an opportunity presents itself. The McLaren in P5 dips a wheel onto the grass under braking, compromising their entry. They lose speed, and we make our American presence known, side by side into turn 9. Just ahead, 2 cars absolutely obliterate some trackside signage. But no time to dwell on their acts of vandalism. We have our own battle to focus on. Turn 10 is coming fast, and although we have a slight edge, we're on the outside. Not ideal. The McLaren, however, completely forgets about this thing called braking and flies off the track. And as if by genetic programming, another McLaren behind us does the exact same thing. I guess it runs in the family. Meanwhile, the 2 cars ahead of us are locked in a full-on war for P3. Side by side into turn 13, neither wants to yield, but the chicane is too narrow for heroics, and the Merc slows in behind. And we inch closer, getting that sweet slipstream down the straight. At this moment, a thought crosses my mind. Even with the tow, we are losing ground. It looks like our setup sacrifices, more wing for the corner grip at the cost of straight line speed, are coming back to bite us. Oh well, we live with our choices. So far, the race is going well, but given our quali pace, challenging the front pack seems unlikely. And sure enough, by the halfway mark, they've disappeared into the distance. Meanwhile, the McLaren we passed earlier is now filling our mirrors. Down the main straight, they get an absolute rocket of a run and decide it's lunge o'clock. They dive up the inside and I back off just enough to avoid a collision. Fair play. They were faster, they made the move, and we're now in P6. Let's see if we can stick with them. Fast forward to the final 5 minutes and our pace is fading. Worse yet, a very determined Aston Martin has entered the chat. We defend hard into turn 4, braking early to keep it clean. But this lets the Aston get even closer. We cover the inside line going into turn 7, forcing them to stay behind. Defensive driving 101. But of course, all this defending simply means our pace suffers even more. And now, to make things more interesting, another McLaren is sniffing around, looking for a last-minute overtake. The night is falling fast, making the headlights flashing from behind even more dramatic. And we brace for impact as we approach a heavy braking zone. The Aston tries to out-accelerate us, but we hold firm through turns 11 and 12. Through turn 13, we stay left to block a dive bomb, but the chicane entry is simply too tight, and our left tires bounce over the sausage curb, making us lose the so much needed momentum. And now, the Aston has had enough of our nonsense. They send it up the inside into the final turn, and disaster. We turn in just a bit too much, make contact and get pushed wide. Somehow, we do keep the car pointed forward, but we lose 2 positions in the process. And as we limp down the straight, 2 more cars blast past us, so that's 4 spots gone in a matter of seconds. With only 2 laps left, all we can do is keep it clean and bring the car home in one piece. Final lap, main straight. We're hoping for a quiet end to this madness.
This is Sparta!
The Aston wants to take what's rightfully ours and slams right into our rear. Thankfully, we see them coming from a mile away and straighten the wheel just in time to avoid a spin. Crisis averted. After taking a beating, we finally nurse the Camaro across the finish line in P10. Honestly, if not for those 2 rear-end shunts, this was a fantastic race. The Chevy held its own, we got into some great battles, and it was actually fun to drive. If only its driver had more skill. But let's not dwell on minor details. As we saw in the first race, the car is great, but the driver, well, let's just say there's room for improvement. And it only proves in this second race, as you will see soon enough. More people signed up for this one, meaning we now have 2 splits and a tougher competition. We have the 14th spot on the grid, and we are ready to show everyone what American muscle is all about. The let's go green and it's go time. Everyone gets a decent launch and we charge down the straight like one big happy family. Except every family has that one annoying uncle who shows up uninvited.
Back in '82, I used to be able to throw a pigskin quarter mile.
This time, he takes the form of an Aston Martin, squeezing us wide. No big deal though. The space was there, no harm, no foul. The pack is still bunched up, so we stay alert, watching both our mirrors and the cars ahead. As we round turn 3 and onto the short back straight, we're looking to take back P14. The Porsche in front brakes early, being cautious, and that's an opportunity for us. We take the outside line, hoping to hold it for the inside at the next turn. But then, disaster. Like a complete imbecile, we brake too late. With nowhere to go, we try to keep it tight and pray. Instead, we plow into an Aston Martin, which then catapults a Mercedes off the track. Fantastic. Feeling like an absolute schmuck, we let everyone within a reasonable distance past. And by the time we settle back in, we're down to P16, trailing an Aston with a slick Italian livery. Sticking close through turn 9 and onto the back straight, we wait for an opening. And we don't have to wait too long. The Aston brakes way too late at the hairpin, leaving the door wide open. The next 2 corners are tricky side by side, so they yield and we reclaim the spot. We approach the final turns of lap 1. Intense, but we are alive and kicking. Turn 13, the Aston shows its nose, looking for a way back through, but the chicane is simply too narrow. They will have to wait. Fast forward half a lap, and we're still chasing the Porsche ahead when the drivers in front decide they simply cannot share turn 9. They tangle, wiping themselves and the Porsche out. Thankfully, the 3 cars part like the Red Sea did in an old book once, and we get to go straight through the mess. The Aston behind has it even better, and doesn't even have to brake, which of course gives them an upper hand on the back straight, and they overtake us, no problemo. In the hairpin, chaos erupts behind us, but we are happy to be uninvolved. 2 laps in, and we are in P13. Now from here, the universe decides to balance things out. The action dies down, and for the next 15 minutes, absolutely nothing happens. We follow the Aston follows the track, that's it. Until the last lap, that is. A Mercedes has caught up, and they're on the hunt. We push the chicane, and reality hits. We're about to lose P13. First instinct? Defend. We move right immediately, and the Merc follows, still in the slipstream. And as they move left to rejoin the racing line, we have a decision to make. In the last split second, we choose to brake early and let them by. Why? Well, a few reasons. First, we don't want to risk another late braking fiasco and ruin the race a lap too soon. And second, this was the same Mercedes we sent flying on lap 1. Giving them the spot back felt like the right thing to do. With that, the race ends. P14, exactly as the racing gods intended. By the 3rd race this week, we're finally on good terms with the Chevy. We've qualified P10. Let's do this. Let's go green, and oh my goodness, The Camaro's acceleration is unreal. Instantly, we gobble up a Mercedes on the left and then another one. Approaching turn 1, we brake early. We don't need to introduce ourselves to any of the remaining Mercedeses. Mercedes? Regardless, 3 positions gained just like that. But now, we need to survive the first lap. We poke our nose around another Merc, but their inside line saves them from the Camaro's wrath. Going into turn 4, we try to invent a somewhat good line so that we can mount a good defense, seeing as there are 2 cars right behind us. We stick to the inside, they are side by side, but the racing is clean, and we get to keep P7. Now that things have settled, it's time to get to work. The plan? Stick with the cars ahead and drop the rest. Based on past races, we're solid for the first half. Then the pace kinda drops off, probably just from overdriving the car. Note to self, perhaps it's time to get into the whole Motec shenanigans to actually analyze our driving. Anyhow, usually we don't have issues with keeping up in the beginning of the race. It's the second half where our pace drops off. Going into this last section of the track is always exciting. The time spent learning the track and practicing can always be more. Practice makes perfect, you know? And the main part that could have used more practice is the famous chicane that we are going into right now. Why is it there? Some say it was introduced for safety reasons, others think it's to bunch the cars up so that there are more overtaking opportunities in turn 1. Well, whatever the reason was, I never got 100% comfortable with it, and my lap times probably suffered because of it the most. But no complaints. We survived lap 1, gained 3 spots, and the car is still in one piece. As per usual, we are aware that we are surrounded by quicker drivers. The qualifying results say it all. But I am sure that more seat time in the Chevy would actually bring us a little bit closer to the front. And now, trouble is brewing ahead. The Porsche in P5 is battling a McLaren, and we're ready to collect any scraps. Out of turn 4, they're nearly side by side. The McLaren takes the safe outside line and the Porsche lunges, but then has a massive slide, killing all of its speed. Everyone tries to pass, including us. We get next to them on this downhill section, and even the Aston from behind wants some action. 3 wide into turn 7 though is not a good idea, and they reasonably back out. We are still side by side with the Porsche though, and willing to take this battle to its logical conclusion. Turn 9 forces them to brake early to hold the narrow inside line, and we capitalize. Getting a strong run onto the back straight, the pass is complete. We cover the inside into the hairpin just in case they want a rematch, but they settle in behind. The overtake took forever, but it's done. Now we focus on the straight. If our exit is good, we can hold them off. Thankfully, the Porsche gets a bit sideways and we are safe for now. But we're not delusional. That driver is quicker, and it's only a matter of time. So the question is, do we defend or let them through and use their slipstream? Turn 1 arrives and they're not quite close enough, but turn 2 sends us a little bit wide, and now they're glued to our bumper. It's decision time. We make the hopefully right choice and let them have the position back. No reason to fight hard this early in the race. They have the inside line handed to them on a platter, and we tuck in behind to hopefully pull away from the rest of the pack. And it works. We stick close to the ongoing McLaren-Porsche war in P5, while behind us the gap stretches to 3 seconds. That of course would have been great, if only it lasted. As tradition dictates, in the final minutes our pace crumbles. By the last lap, the gap shrinks to under half a second. The Aston Martin behind is ready to pounce. Coming out of turn 4, our bumpers are nearly touching. They swing right to take the outside line, but then, oh no, what is this? Have they decided to use another dimension to make the move stick?
Beam me up.
Well, as we exit turn 5, they teleport back in, and there is a bit of contact. We lose some speed, and still being in shock, we have a bit of a moment in the next turn. The Aston brakes a bit early, we brake slightly late, and as always in these situations, that leads to a collision. Miraculously, we both keep it together and press on. Then, in a class act, the Aston lifts on the final turn, letting us take the position back. But honestly, disconnection or not, they earned it. My hat's off to them.
This week's races were challenging, but you did well, considering it's a new car and track combo.
Yeah, you did great. You're the best.
So what do you think about the car?
Honestly, I love it. It's more stable than I expected, handles the curves well, with some setup tweaks and more seat time, we're bound for a podium.
Yes, switching to a new car means losing some pace, but it's often fun to learn and adapt to the new driving characteristics.
Right. Also, I need to keep in mind to drive a bit more carefully, especially in a new car, to avoid any unplanned lunges I will regret later.
That's what we're here for. Practice, practice, and more practice. Let's get out there and put some solid laps down.